Hello friends and welcome back. In this lecture we will continue our introduction to classes and objects, and this is the outline. We will talk about the relation between classes and objects, and then we will talk about constructors, and we will see what is a default constructor. And finally, we will see what's the relation between a graphical user interface or GUI and object-oriented programming. Okay? So let's get started. So we already know what is an object, and now let's talk about classes. A class defines the data fields and actions of an object. So for example, we can create a point object from the class point. And as you know, when we create this object has some fields and some methods. So how did the object get these fields and methods? The answer to this question is the class. So inside this class, we define the structure of an object that we create from this class. We say what are the data fields and what are the actions that an object will have, okay? So, to create an object, we need a template or a blueprint that defines the data fields and the methods that this object will have. And this template or blueprint is the class. And we create this object based on this class. This is why we say an object is an instance of a class. So when we create a string object, for example, this object is an instance of the string class, okay? Also, objects of the same type are created or instantiated from the same class, okay? So another way to think about a class is that it is simply a data type, and we can create variables of this data type, and these variables are called objects. Finally, a Java class uses variables to define the data fields and methods to define the actions. So for example, inside the point class, we have two variables, x and y, and these variables are the data fields of a point object. Also, inside the point class, we have methods, and these methods will be the actions of a point object. And there are special methods which are called constructors. So let's talk a little bit about constructors. So first of all, what is a constructor? A constructor is a method that is used to create objects. So let me tell you this. A constructor can do anything because it is simply a method. So you can do whatever you want inside this method. But we don't want to do anything inside a constructor, because a constructor is designed to do initializing actions, such as initializing the data fields of an object. Let me give you an example. Over here, I'm creating a point object and I'm storing its address inside this variable p1. So this method that we are using over here is the constructor that allows us to create point objects. As you can see over here, the constructor takes two arguments, the value of the abscissa and the ordinate. So this constructor initializes the data fields of a point object. It initializes the value of x to be this value and the value of y to be this value. And this method over here is actually the constructor. First of all, as you can see, it is a public method. It doesn't have a return type and it is called point. So it has the same name as the class. And it takes two parameters, x and y. Of course, the names of these parameters can be anything. But as a best practice in Java, the parameters of the constructor should have the same name as the data fields. And inside a point class, we have a data field called x and a data field called y. And this is why we call this parameter x and this parameter y, okay? Now, just like any other method, this constructor has a block of code. And over here, we are saying this.x is equal to x and this.y is equal to y. So now you are asking, what is this? What you need to know right now that this keyword refers to the object. So over here we are saying that the x data field of the object should be equal to the parameter x, and the y data field of the object should be equal to the parameter y. Okay? So we are initializing the data fields of our object with the values that we get as a parameter. And this is the job of a constructor. And later on we will re-talk about constructors, but I want to give you an idea. Now let's talk about default constructors. A default constructor is a constructor that takes no parameters. Now let me tell you this. If we create a class without creating a constructor, Java automatically creates a default constructor that takes no parameters. And we will be able to use it to create objects of this class. So later on, we will create a class, and even if we don't create a constructor, we will be able to create objects from this class using a constructor that takes no parameters. And this is possible because Java automatically creates this constructor. Okay? So finally, let's talk about the relation between object-oriented programming and GUI, or graphical user interface. Suppose that you want to create a program that looks like this one. As you can see, this program has an interface. It doesn't run in the terminal. So to be able to create a program like this, you will have to study how to create graphical user interfaces. And this is possible in Java. And it is all based on object-oriented programming. For example, this text that you see over here, enter text, is an object of a class in Java. For example, there is a class that is called label, and we can create objects from this class. Another example, in order to be able to create some buttons, there is a class that is called button. And these buttons over here are objects of this class. So to be able to create graphical user interfaces, you will need object-oriented programming. So this is it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.